The thunder cracked so violently above the diner parking lot that Daniel froze mid-step, the tray of empty coffee mugs trembling in his hands, just as he saw her collapse face first into the rain. For a second, no one else seemed to notice. The storm had swallowed everything, headlights blurring into streaks of white, wind hurling trash across the asphalt, rain falling so hard it bounced off the pavement like shattered glass. The neon sign of Rosie's Diner flickered above him, buzzing faintly, as if even it were unsure whether to stay alive through the storm. Daniel set the tray down without thinking. She wasn't moving. Have you ever seen something happen so suddenly that your body reacts before your mind does? Before fear can talk you out of it? He ran. Water soaked through his shoes instantly. His thin diner uniform clung to his skin as he reached her side. She was young, maybe mid-20s, dressed in a cream blouse now streaked with mud, dark hair plastered across her face. Her hands were scraped raw, like she had fallen more than once before finally hitting the ground. "Hey," he said, kneeling beside her, rain stinging his eyes. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" No response. Her breathing was shallow, too shallow. A black SUV idled at the edge of the lot, its headlights aimed directly at them. Daniel glanced up briefly, shielding his eyes. The vehicle didn't move, didn't honk, just waited. Something about that made his stomach tighten. He looked back down at her. Her lips were pale. She felt cold, not just rain cold, but deeper than that. He slipped off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders, lifting her carefully. She was lighter than he expected. "Come on," he muttered under his breath. "Stay with me." The SUV's engine revved slightly. Daniel met the glare of its headlights again. "You gonna help?" he shouted into the storm. The engine cut, the lights switched off, and the vehicle drove away. A chill crawled up his spine that had nothing to do with the weather. What would you have done in that moment? Stayed out of it, walked back into the warm diner and told yourself it wasn't your problem? Daniel didn't have that luxury. He carried her inside. The bell above the diner door chimed violently as wind pushed it open. Conversations halted. Forks paused mid-air. The smell of fried onions and fresh coffee filled the room. "Danny, what on earth?" Rosie, the owner, hurried from behind the counter. "She collapsed outside," Daniel said quickly, laying the woman gently across two pushed-together booths. "Call 911. Rosie didn't argue. She grabbed the phone immediately. Daniel brushed wet hair from the woman's face. There was a faint bruise forming near her temple. His pulse pounded. "Stay with me," he whispered again. Her eyelids fluttered faintly. He exhaled. 10 minutes later, paramedics burst through the door, boots squeaking on tile. They worked quickly, efficiently. Blood pressure low. Signs of exhaustion. Possible concussion. "Do you know her?" one of them asked Daniel. He shook his head. Never seen her before. The paramedic studied him a moment, as if measuring sincerity, then nodded. "You likely saved her from hypothermia." "Saved her." Daniel stepped back as they loaded her onto a stretcher. For a brief second, as they wheeled her out, her eyes opened halfway. Dazed, searching, they locked onto his, and in that split second, he saw something there that didn't match her fragile appearance. Fear, not confusion, not weakness, fear. Then she was gone. The storm swallowed the ambulance siren as quickly as it had begun. Daniel stood in the diner doorway long after the red lights disappeared. "You okay, Danny?" Rosie asked gently behind him. He nodded slowly. Yeah, but he wasn't, because that SUV hadn't felt random. And that, fear in her eyes hadn't felt accidental. That night, he got home later than usual. The small apartment smelled faintly of lavender detergent and tomato soup. A single lamp lit the living room. On the couch, curled under a blanket, was the most important person in his world. "Dad," Emma's sleepy voice drifted toward him. He smiled immediately, fatigue dissolving. "Hey, Peanut." She sat up, dark curls bouncing. 10 years old, too smart for her age, and carrying a quiet sadness she rarely spoke about. "You're late." Storm slowed things down. He hung his soaked jacket by the door. She frowned slightly. "You're shivering." He waved it off and moved to the kitchen to warm leftovers. "Just rain." She studied him the way only a child who has lost one parent can study the other, carefully, as if checking for cracks. "Did something happen?" she asked softly. He hesitated. Emma deserved honesty, but she didn't deserve worry. "Someone needed help," he said simply. "So I helped." Her face lit up faintly. "Like a superhero," he chuckled. "More like a soaked waiter." She smiled, but then grew thoughtful. "Mom used to say helping people always comes back around." His chest tightened at the mention of Sarah. It had been 3 years since the accident. 3 years since a drunk driver ran a red light and stole half of Daniel's world. He forced a steady breath. Your mom was right about most things. Emma slid off the couch and hugged him around the waist. He held her tightly, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo. Have you ever held someone knowing you are all they have left? It changes you. Later that night, long after Emma fell asleep, Daniel sat alone at the kitchen table. He couldn't shake the image of the SUV, or the look in the woman's eyes. The next morning, life continued as usual. Breakfast shift, refilled coffees, forced smiles for impatient customers. But around noon, 2 men in dark suits walked into the diner. They didn't look like regulars. Their eyes scanned the room with calculated precision before landing on him. Daniel Hayes, one asked. His hand paused mid-pour. That's me. We'd like to ask about the incident last night. Incident. Rosie's eyes flicked nervously toward him from the counter. Daniel nodded slowly. She collapsed. I brought her inside. That's it. The men exchanged a look. Did you notice anyone else nearby? He thought of the SUV. Something in him hesitated. Why? Because the way they stood, too stiff, too polished, felt less like concern and more like containment. There was a vehicle, he admitted carefully. Black SUV. Both men stiffened slightly. License plate. Couldn't see it. They studied him longer than necessary. If she contacts you, the second man said coolly, you notify us. Why would she contact me? Daniel asked. They didn't answer. Instead, they handed him a business card with no company name. Just a number. Then they left. Rosie exhaled sharply once the door closed. Danny, what did you step into? He stared at the card. I'm not sure. That evening, when he returned home, Emma was sitting cross-legged in front of the TV, cereal bowl in hand. Dad, come here. He dropped his keys on the table. What's up? She pointed at the screen. A news broadcast played. A polished anchor spoke urgently. The missing daughter of Senator William Whitmore was found alive late last night after being reported kidnapped 3 days ago. Daniel's heart slammed against his ribs. The screen shifted, and there she was, the woman from the rain. Hair brushed neatly now, a faint bandage near her temple, standing beside an older man with silver hair and a rigid posture. Emily Whitmore was discovered near a local diner during severe weather conditions. Authorities are not releasing full details but confirm she is recovering. Emma turned to him slowly. Dad, she whispered. Daniel couldn't breathe. She's the lady, Emma said. The one you helped. The room felt suddenly too small. On screen, Emily Whitmore spoke briefly. Her voice trembled but remained composed. I want to thank the man who carried me into safety. I don't know his name, but he saved my life. Daniel's throat tightened. The broadcast cut to footage of the senator addressing the press. We are investigating every angle, he stated firmly. Those responsible will be found. Emma looked up at her father, eyes wide with awe. You really are a superhero. Daniel forced a small smile.